final resolution that came forward. And if you look at Minister Stephen Guilbeault's comments about why he did not support that, he said it's because in Canada, natural resources are provincial jurisdiction. And if he signed on to a resolution to phase out oil and natural gas, he would face a legal challenge from the provinces that Ottawa would not win. Now, this is not language I've ever heard out of Stephen Guilbeault, but I think it goes to the work that our Environment Minister, Sonia Savage, has done in helping to educate Ottawa that we are not a subordinate level of government, that we want...
Why you need this power? Like, what is so urgent that you would use what is normally an emergency power to skip around the legislature to put
because we've been ignored.
Point on?
We've been ignored for 10 years. The former Premier, Rachel Notley, tried the climate leadership plan to get a better relationship with Ottawa. It failed. Former Premier Jason Kenney tried to have a collaborative relationship with Stephen Guilbeault in Quebec to get LNG export. It failed. We put forward an equalization referendum to try to start a conversation to change the relationship with Ottawa. It failed. So now we're going to try something new. I think we've got their attention. We've got their attention because I know with the relationship that we're now seeing develop with the federal government, finally recognizing that they cannot pass carte blanche power over our natural resources, that they have recognized our industrial pricing program around industrial emissions for CO2, that they have accepted that natural resources fall within our jurisdiction. I think that that begins a constructive relationship, and that's what this was all about. You do not have that relationship change without a push. This was a push. And here's the point. I hope we never have to use this bill. I hope that we've sent a message to Ottawa that we will vigorously defend our constitutional areas of jurisdiction, and they should just butt out. They should work collaboratively with us on areas where we have common cause. And I'm hoping that we're beginning to see a change in that relationship. That's the reason you put forward a piece of legislation like this. It's the reason why Scott Moe put forward a similar piece of legislation, which incidentally, the NDP in Saskatchewan are supporting, because they are also realizing that you've got to put Saskatchewan first. We are putting Alberta first, and I would invite the NDP to join us in supporting this bill.
Well, isn't that interesting? I have to say, if that speech was spoken en français, it would be completely unremarkable, because that generally has been the point of view of every premier of Quebec, whether they're the Parti Québécois, the Liberals, or the new CAQ party. Standing up for Quebec jurisdiction and staring down at Ottawa is actually common currency amongst all the provinces. You'll notice that the placard on her podium said standing up for Alberta. And I think one of the knocks on Jason Kenney over the last few years was not just his heavy-handed approach to the lockdowns, but rather his failure to stand up sufficiently vigorously to Ottawa. At least that's my take, but some would say I've gone all Toronto-ish, having been out here for a while. So let's go to our man who can give us the proper understanding of Edmonton. He's our Sherpa out there. I'm talking about our friend Lauren Gunter, senior columnist of the Edmonton Sun. Great to see you again, my friend. How are you?
Good to see you. You're still Albertan at the core. I can sense that. So
well, thank you for the compliment. I mean, Alberta's an interesting place, and like Quebec, I think like Newfoundland, like BC, it always profits a premier to fight against Ottawa, and not just for sizzle reasons. There is some substance to it too. Danielle Smith pointed out that maybe the feds blinked at saying we're going to phase out oil and gas because they know they're going to have a tougher time with Danielle Smith as premier. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know that either, but I am surprised that Guilbeault said that at COP27 in Egypt, because the feds have not cared. That's one of the reasons why I like this act. I think there's a lot in it that is redundant, that there's already the existing powers under the Constitution for the provincial government to do a lot of the things laid out in the Sovereignty Act. I think a lot of it is going to be going to end up being a dead end. For instance, one of the things that the provincial government wants to do with this act is put the onus on the feds to show that a law they pass is constitutional, rather than Alberta having to go to court, sometimes with other provinces, to see whether the courts will uphold the federal law as constitutional. I think in the end, the feds are the feds, and they appoint all the judges. above the provincial level anyway. And in every province, all the federal judges appointed by Ottawa, you're unlikely to get many courts that will rule federal legislation is unconstitutional. But it does happen every once in a while. And I think it's good for the province to say, look, until you can come back to us and have a court order that says this is constitutional, we're not abiding by this law. Will it buy us much time? Probably not. Will it get us new results? Maybe. And I think that's what's useful to me in this law, is that maybe they'll give Ottawa indigestion or a headache or a rash that the feds have to deal with by giving us a little salve now and then. And so, yes, is this the be-all and end-all? No. But after having been battered by the feds for 40 years, and especially since 2015 when the Trudeau Liberals took over, it's a welcome relief to see the provincial government putting this kind of pressure. I'll give you an example of why I think it's unnecessary, but why I don't mind that. Before this bill came in, the feds had announced that they were going to ban handguns in Canada. And Tyler Shandro, who is the Justice Minister in Alberta, said, fine, we think that's wrong. We think it's ridiculous. We don't think it's going to achieve anything in bringing down crime in Canada because criminals already don't obey laws about gun restrictions. But if you're going to do this, understand, the RCMP is the local police force in all but a few of the major cities in Alberta. And we, the province of Alberta, pay for them to be the police. We are not going to authorize a single cent of our payment to go towards confiscating handguns because we don't like this law. Well, you didn't need the Sovereignty Act to do that. They did it before they had the Sovereignty Act. But the Sovereignty Act gets them in the mindset that they're going to do things like that more often. They're going to be more like Quebec, where Quebec just looks for ways to avoid federal legislation. And so I in general, I like the approach of this law.
That's an excerpt from my show every night. It's called The Ezra Levant Show. That's me, Ezra Levant. You can see the whole thing behind our paywall. Well, there's a lot of goodies behind there. I do a show every weeknight. My friends Sheila Gunn Reid and David Menzies and Nat and Kat have their shows too. You get a ton of content for just $8 a month. There's so much in there you won't find anywhere else. Go to rebelnewsplus.ca.